This audiobook is for information purposes and for personal use only.
Gifts of Imperfection, by Brené Brown. Introduction. Shame researcher, heal thyself. No matter how much you know about shame, it can sneak up on you. Trust me, I speak from experience. You can be in the middle of a shame experience, without even knowing what's happening and why. The good news is that, with enough practice, shame resilience can also sneak up on you. The following story not only illustrates the insidious nature of shame, it also reinforces the importance of speaking about shame and telling our story. For several months in 2009, my blog was featured as an example site on the hosting company's main page. It was really fun, because I got lots of traffic from people who wouldn't normally search out a blog on authenticity and courage. One day, I got an email from a woman who liked my layout and design. I felt proud and grateful, until I got to this part of her email: I really like your blog. It's very creative and easy to read. The snap of you and your girlfriend in the theater would be the only exception, agads. I would never add a bad photo to a blog, but I am the photographer here. I couldn't believe it. The photo she was referring to was a picture that I had taken of my good friend Laura and me, sitting in a dark theater, waiting for the Sex and the City movie to start. It was opening day, and we were feeling goofy and excited. So I pulled out my camera and snapped a picture. I was so angry, confused, and shocked by this woman's comment about my picture, but I kept reading. She went on to ask a lot of questions about the blog's design, and then closed her email by explaining that she works with many clueless parents and that she plans to let them know about my parenting work. Whatever. I was so pissed off. I paced back and forth in the kitchen, then sat down to pound out an email. Draft number 1 included this line: agads. I would never put down someone's photography, but I'm the shame researcher here. Draft number 2 included this line: I checked out your photography online. If you're concerned about posting bad photos, I'd rethink posting your photos. Draft number 3 included this line: if you're going to send a shitty email, the least you can do is spell check it. The does not mean they are mean, nasty. I didn't care, but I also didn't send it. Something in my body stopped me. I read over my attack emails, took a deep breath, and then raced into the bedroom. I threw on my running shoes and a baseball cap and hit the pavement. I needed to get out of the house and discharge the weird energy coursing through my veins. About 1 mile into my walk, I called my good friend Laura, the friend who happens to appear with me in said theater picture. I told her about the woman's email, and she gasped. Are you kidding me? Nope, I'm not kidding. Wanna hear my 3 responses? I'm still trying to decide which one to use. I recited my kill and destroy responses, and she gasped again. Brené, those are really ballsy. I couldn't do it. I'd just be really hurt, and probably cry. Laura and I talk about heavy stuff all of the time. We have a very comfortable rhythm. We can ping words all over the place, or both get really quiet. We're always analyzing and saying things like, okay, stay with me, I'm thinking, and does this make sense? Or, no, wait, it's coming to me. At this point in our conversation, I said, Laura, don't say anything. I need to think about what you just said. For 2 or 3 minutes, the only sound was my sweaty panting. Finally, I said, you would get your feelings hurt and cry. Laura reluctantly responded, yes. Why? Well, I hesitated. I'm thinking that crying and getting my feelings hurt would be the brave option for me. Laura sounded surprised. What do you mean? I explained the best I could. Mean and nasty is my default setting. It doesn't take courage for me to be shaming back. I can use my shame superpowers for evil in a split second. Letting myself feel hurt, that's a totally different story. I think your default is my courage. We talked about it for a while, and decided that Laura's courage is AC. Acknowledging hurt without running from it, and my courage is acknowledging hurt and not hurting back. We also agreed that cruelty is never brave, it's mostly cheap and easy, especially in today's culture. After talking for another mile or so, Laura asked, okay, now that we've got the acknowledging hurt thing down, what would be the courageous thing for you to do with this email? I fought back tears. Be hurt. Cry. Tell you about it. Let it go. Delete the email. Don't even respond. Laura was quiet for a minute, then she blurted out, "Oh my God. That's shame resilience, right? You're practicing courage." I was confused. Like I had never heard the term before. "Huh, what do you mean?" Laura patiently said, "Shame resilience, you know, your book. The blue one. The 4 elements of shame resilience, name it. Talk about it. Own your story. Tell the story. Your book." We both started laughing. I thought to myself, holy crap. It works. A week later, I was standing in front of a group of 70 graduate students who were taking my course on shame and empathy. I was talking about the 4 elements of shame resilience when one of the students raised her hand and asked for an example. I decided to tell the Agad's story. It's such a great example of how shame can happen at a totally unconscious level, and how important it is to name it and talk about it. I set up the story by describing my blog and my new commitment to learn photography. I told them that I felt vulnerable about sharing my pictures, and I felt ashamed and belittled when I received this critical email. When I told them about my deep desire to respond with cruelty, several of the students buried their heads in their hands and others just looked away. I'm sure some were disappointed by my lack of enlightenment. Others looked plain scared. One student raised his hand and said, "Can I ask a personal question?" Given that I was in the middle of sharing a vulnerable shame story, I figured that it couldn't hurt. I was wrong. He bravely said, "I hear you saying that it was about feeling criticized about your photography, but was that really the vulnerability? Did the shame come from feeling like you were being criticized for a bad picture, or were you ashamed because you're allowing yourself to be vulnerable and open, rather than closed and protected, and someone hurt you? Was it real? Why about letting yourself be open to connection and getting hurt?" My mouth got dry. I started sweating. I rubbed my forehead and then looked straight at the red-faced students. I can't believe it. That's exactly what happened. I didn't know it until this minute, but that's what happened. That's exactly what happened. I took a goofy picture in the theater, something I don't normally do, but I was with a close friend. And we were feeling giddy and girly. I posted it online, because I was excited and thought it was fun. Then someone criticized me. A couple of the students glared at the brave colleague like, "Way to go. You traumatized her." But I didn't feel traumatized, or found out, or exposed. I felt liberated. The story I needed to own, in order to access my worthiness, was not a store. Why of a rookie photographer struggling with criticism over a photograph? It was the story of a pretty serious person, being fun and spontaneous, and goofy and imperfect, and having someone poke at that vulnerability. Resilience is often a slow unfolding of understanding. What did that experience mean to me? What were the gremlins mumbling? Not only do we need to own our story, and love ourselves in the process. We have to figure out the real story. We also have to learn how we protect ourselves from shame, if we want to develop worthiness. What does shame look like? When it comes to understanding how we defend ourselves against shame, I have the utmost respect for the work from the Stone Center at Wellesley. Dr. Linda Hartling, a former relational cultural theorist at the Stone Center, and now the Director of Human Dignity and Humiliation Studies, uses the late Karen Horney's work on moving toward, moving against, and moving away to outline the strategies of disconnection we use to deal with shame. According to Dr. Hartling, in order to deal with shame, some of us move away by withdrawing, hiding, silencing ourselves, and keeping secrets. Some of us move toward by seeking to appease and please. And some of us move against by trying to gain power over others, by being aggressive, and by using shame to fight shame, like sending really mean emails. Most of us use all of these at different times with different folks, for different reasons. Yet all of these strategies move us away from our story. Shame is about fear, blame, and disconnection. Story is about worthiness and embracing the imperfections that bring us courage, compassion, and connection. If we want to live fully, without the constant fear of not being enough, we have to own our story. We also have to respond to shame in a way that doesn't exacerbate our shame. One way to do that is to recognize when we're in shame, so we can react with intention. Shame is a full contact emotion. Men and women, with high levels of shame resilience, know when shame is happening. The easiest way to know shame is to cultivate an awareness of our physical shame symptoms. As I mentioned in the chapter on courage, compassion, and connection. I know that I'm struggling with shame. When that warm wash of inadequacy comes over me, my heart races, my face feels hot, my mouth gets dry, my armpits tingle, and time slows down. It's important to know our personal symptoms, so we can get deliberate in our response to shame. When we're in shame, we're not fit for human consumption. We need to get back on our emotional feet, before we do, say, email, or text something that we'll regret. I know that it will take me 10 to 15 minutes to pull myself together, and that I will definitely cry before I am ready. I'll also need to pray. Knowing this is such a gift. If you want to kickstart your shame resilience and story claiming, start with these questions. Figuring out the answers can change your life. 1. Who do you become when you're backed into that shame corner? 2. How do you protect yourself? 3. Who do you call to work through the mean nasties, or the cry and hides, or the people-pleasing? 4. What's the most courageous thing you could do for yourself when you feel small and hurt? Our stories are not meant for everyone. Hearing them is a privilege, and we should always ask ourselves this before we share: who has earned the right to hear my story? If we have 1 or 2 people in our lives who can sit with us and hold space for our shame stories and love us for our strengths and struggles, we are incredibly lucky. If we have a friend, or a small group of friends, or family who embraces our imperfections, vulnerabilities, and power, and fills us with a sense of belonging, we are incredibly lucky. We don't need love and belonging, and story catching, from everyone in our lives, but we need it from at least one person. If we have that one person, or that small group of confidants, the best way to acknowledge these connections is to acknowledge our worthiness. If we're working toward relationships based in love, belonging, and story, we have to start in the same place: I am worthy.